Talk about massive. Alaska completely mogs all of the USA. The fact that we have one state that stretches all the way across the lower 48, that seems kind of crazy. Literally 2,400 miles approximately. Now, of course, we're using Alaska's islands as well, but just look at the actual chunk of landmass. This is basically as big as the Midwest. Alaska's area would cover 21% of the lower 48 states. That's almost a full quarter. Thank God Russia was stupid enough to sell this to us. Now, to be fair, the US and Russia was actually pretty cool with each other back then. A lot of people don't know this, but Alaska has over 2,000 islands. It's actually 2,670 to be exact. That is according to some estimates. Islands are kind of hard to define sometimes. And not only does Alaska control these islands that stretch far into the Pacific, but we also have this tail next to Canada. Everyone always forgets about this little tail, to be honest. I usually just put like a straight line down. And just north to south, you would be going from North Dakota to somewhere in southern Oklahoma. It's almost 1,000 miles upward. Problem, of course, with this state is that, well, nobody lives here. That's right, Alaska is literally that big, almost a quarter of all of the lower 48 states, yet they have less than 1 million population. And it's for good reason too. I mean, you kind of don't really want to live in Alaska. I did meet one girl from Alaska ever. She basically told me that everyone there is an alcoholic. I wish I was joking. That was literally what was said. There's just something about colder climates and alcoholism. I don't know. Isn't that right, old buddy Russia? No, but Alaska is increasingly becoming one of the most important territories that we have in all of the US, not only because it's so massive, it provides so many resources, but also a fantastic shipping hub when taking cargo from the US over to Asia or vice versa. I would make a bet, honestly, that Alaska is only going to increase its importance over the course of the next 100 years, especially after climate change. Climate change is going to radically increase the importance of Alaska, that's for sure. It's especially wild because, yeah, when you consider flat maps like the Mercator projection, you might assume that, no, Alaska can't be that big. But no, I mean, it kind of really is. This is the Mercator projection. Now, to be fair, this projection makes it look like Alaska's literally half the size of the lower 48 states, but it's still huge. The US minus Alaska is smaller than Brazil. Yeah, we would fall quite a long ways in the amount of land area that we have without Alaska. 2/3 the size of India? Wow. Africa is apparently just barely legal. This is the median age by continent. The average human being walking around Alaska is about 19 years old. That sounds like a problem. Not that Africa's a problem, but that everybody else isn't even close to that number. The next closest is South America, but their average age is 31. Now, it's important to keep in mind the definition of median, because here's the thing, Africa is actually being affected by two things here. Obviously, Africa is just having a whole lot more kids than every other continent around the world. However, Africa just has much lower life expectancy, so they don't have a whole lot of 80-year-olds just walking around, which means all the other continents have kind of the opposite problem, where there are more 80-year-olds, however, there's not very many kids. That's especially the case with Europe, bringing a whole new meaning to the term old world. Typically, we in the Americas describe Europe as considering the old world, but this has a whole different meaning behind it. To be fair, though, it's not like all of our population saying 6, 7 out this way. We're 38 on average. It's like 4 years younger than Europe. And how much you want to bet it's mostly Mexico and Latin America that's keeping this number, dragging it down. Asia is a fascinating place to break down into a singular continent because obviously there's a ton of different countries here and a ton of different countries that have drastically different situations going on. Obviously, you have a place like Japan and South Korea. They're facing birth rates that are plummeting. They're actually just really old societies right now. But India kind of outweighs everyone here since obviously they're the most populated country on Earth. They're still having pretty good birth rates. Oceania not doing too bad either. I gotta admit, even for myself, like when I'm out traveling, when I come across either kids or a group of young people, I'm a little bit like, whoa, like a lot of kids. That's always my first thought. Damn, it's a lot of kids. Like, I'm just not used to seeing a lot of young adults. Well, maybe not young adults, but a lot of just, I don't know, babies, toddlers, kids, teenagers. On average, like when I go on an airplane, like, yeah, everyone looks like they're 38 or 40. Then again, if you're on an airplane, you're probably a professional, you probably got money, you probably have, you know, things to spend on. There are more children in Africa than adults? Whoa. Europe be like, I'm in my prime. I was gonna make this statement, but I wasn't sure. Papua New Guinea is really bringing down that median age of Australia. Yeah, I know Australia and New Zealand aren't particularly young countries either. The average Aussie tends to get eaten by sharks, crocs, or spiders before the age of 60, so this checks out. Why does it feel like in 10 to 20 years we're just gonna be nations of like old people? I mean, I guess we kind of already are, but like I'm talking like just a nation of 60-year-olds. But speaking of Africa, this singular African nation has more births in it than an entire continent. That is right, there is more births in Nigeria than all of Europe. Compare this to the year 1950, where Europe had 12 million births, meanwhile Nigeria only had 1.7. That seems a bit better for an entire continent, also not too bad for just a singular country. 12 million births in 1 year, that seems like kind of a lot, especially keeping in mind that 75 years ago there was a lot less humans in general on the planet. Mind you, India had 25 million births in the year 2023, so twice as much as the European continent, but again, there were just not that many people running around 75 years ago. Mind you, this chart is also including Russia inside of Europe as well. And does anyone think this is going to get better? All the projections are saying no, that this is just going to get worse for the EU and even better for Nigeria. Look at that huge dip in 1990 to 1995. This is where Europe really falls off. Mind you, that coincides with the fall of the Cold War, the fall of the communist world. I think a lot of Russians probably weren't trying to have babies after the Soviet Union fell. There was a brief spike in 2010, but then it collapsed again. Nigeria has just been like on a steady pace, just climbing and climbing and climbing. An interesting point, which the graph shows, is that Nigeria's birth rate has already plateaued. I didn't make a mention of that, but I did see this very small decline to be fascinating. Again, Nigeria is still expected to grow over the course of the next 25 to 50 years, but then it is supposed to decline. Remember, we're just looking at the number of births per year. So Nigeria can certainly continue to grow its population if it's growing 7 million babies every single year. Growing babies, Drew? I guess that works. So 7 million, 7 million, 7 million. It'll just continue to be like that. But yeah, eventually Nigeria will probably collapse too, unless there's like a massive cultural shift in the world, which is definitely possible in the next 50 years. I don't know what has to happen. I'm gonna be honest, I do believe that there will be a pro-natalist movement at some point in the future in a lot of the Western world. I don't know when it's gonna happen, probably in the next generation, maybe Generation Alpha, because they're gonna be looking around being like, wow, this is getting kind of weird. Like, there's no young people. Like, there's gonna be a cultural shift. I don't know if that shift's really going to change anything, though. I mean, they're gonna have to do a lot of work if they want to catch up. And the movement probably won't even make a dent in it, to be honest, but I do think there will be some type of a movement in the future. These types of pendulums are just always swinging back and forth. Nigeria's population are just estimates. A census hasn't been done since 2006, so take every figure with a grain of salt. Same thing, this is what I always think about when numbers come out of China. We don't really know how many people China has. What makes that chart even more crazy, though, is that Europe has 750 million people in it, and yet they still have lower births than Nigeria at only 220 million. They're probably at 222 million. I don't know. So that means just a third of the population in green is making more babies than all of these people in blue. My God. Definitely something to keep in mind, though, is unfortunately infant mortality. Apparently, Israel has started their withdrawal. This is the first phase out of several withdrawal plans, and just recently, the Israeli hostages have been handed back over. Israel retains control of 58% of the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces remain in these Palestinian neighborhoods. I just can't help but think, like, what is going to happen next? Like, I'm talking, like, years down the line, sometimes even decades. Like, does something like this just occur again in the future? Is this just like a momentary ceasefire? Is this like a Treaty of Versailles, where World War I eventually leads to World War II? Obviously, we're just talking Israel and Gaza, and that's a much smaller scale than world conflicts, but we'll see how long, I guess, tensions are decreased for. I don't have a lot of faith, to be quite honest. I don't know how long things will just stay chill like this. It's not typically a region that is used to staying chill. It's crazy, that's one of the top comments. Hope it will last long this time, like a very early Christmas miracle. Oh, we're not talking about the Christmas. I was thinking World War I, the whole Christmas truce thing. Damn. You literally see like articles like this, though, that pop up just recently, though. I think it's very clear that it's extremely fragile. That is definitely a good way to put it at the moment. Things can change on a dime. This is all a part of the 20-point peace plan that Trump said. Yeah, I feel like there might be some of these celebrations feel a little premature. Teachers be like, oh, it's not that complicated. Meanwhile, the subject material, oh, it's not that complicated, you say. Unironically, this is actually history teachers when they teach World War I. This is labeled as a cool guide for the diplomatic situation of Europe back in 1914. This is right before World War I started, or I guess all when the declarations of war were being declared. I'm gonna try to break all this crap down. Actually, can I even do that? Okay, so it starts basically with Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia and vice versa. That's those two arrows. Then Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary declares war back on them. You can actually ignore these two black arrows because Italy doesn't join until later. Germany declares war on Russia. Russia declares war back on Germany. That means that France and the UK got to join in. So UK declares war on Germany. Germany declares back on them. France declares war on Germany. Germany declares war back on them. They got to have a place to fight. So Germany's got to declare war on Belgium. Oh, that's a big ass arrow that is like Austria-Hungary going to declare war on the UK. Did Austria-Hungary not declare war on France? Oh, I actually didn't know this. They didn't. They didn't officially declare war on France. Instead, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia and then Russia, obviously. I mean, they weren't bordering France. I could see why they didn't necessarily need to declare war on France. They did go after Italy, though. What is this in the Mediterranean, though? Corsica, France, declaring war on these islands. Was that controlled by Spain? This cool guide is just making things more confusing for me. And I thought I knew everything about this whole subject. Just making sure these islands have always been under control of Spain, right? So why are their arrows going to what? Spain was neutral in World War I. Interesting, the UK declares war on Turkey, but this is actually the Ottoman Empire. France does not, though. Turkey declares war on Russia and vice versa. Oh yeah, Bulgaria is involved. Man, this is a freaking mess. Oh, okay, good. That is one of the comments. I was very confused about those islands, but yeah, this is satire. This looks something out of a Animaniac song. Yeah, this is coming out of an Onion article, which is a satirical news site. I thought we all understood that this was kind of a joke map. You know, I've heard people refer to Germany as the cockroach of nations, meaning that they just won't die. And, well, looking at all this destruction of literally all their cities, and considering they now currently have the third biggest economy in the world, I don't want to say I believe in that horrible slogan. Maybe I'll just stop myself right there. Basically, 50% or more of the country was blown to smithereens. Dresden, which is a very popular topic, only at 59% compared to some of these other places like Bremen or Hamburg at 75. Damn it. I love hamburgers. No wonder hamburgers were gone for so long there. Hell, at 80%, that's the highest on the list. Maine's also at 80 though, and this is the western side. That's something to keep in mind. So basically, imagine the separation of eastern and western Germany. It basically goes something like do. So all of this was controlled by the Soviets. It seems like the Allies, like the UK, France, and the Americans, they definitely did a number on Germany as well. It wasn't like just one singular side got destroyed. Like, they both equally got destroyed, and if anything, maybe the Soviets didn't destroy it quite as much. They also just took much less territory of Germany, though. Of at least this form of Germany that we know today. These are the current borders, but obviously back in these days, before World War II, they didn't have these borders. It's actually this city at the highest rate, 83%. And this map doesn't even show the city center, only for Berlin. For many of the cities shown on the map, the city's centers were also almost completely destroyed. Again, the fact that they could take this much damage, and now here in 2025 be one of the world's best economies? Insane. Mind you, they already got pretty blown up to smithereens after World War I, too. Maybe not to this extent. Now, things like, what's it called again? The Marshall Plan helped to rebuild the western side quite a bit. I honestly don't even believe that many of our minds can't even begin to fathom what this type of destruction really looks like. Luckily, we have pictures, but I really hope people understand, like, the level of destruction here. It really shouldn't be surprising at all to say that obviously Germany took decades to rebuild. Imagine walking through like your hometown and just seeing basically all of the buildings in your neighborhood all abandoned. Not only abandoned, but literally just rubble. Basically rubble. Something that I'm just thinking about right now is just also the amount of history that was probably lost during this. Obviously at the time of World War II, that's not really the priority, but oh yeah, here you go. There's pretty much no pre-war buildings left. And just for clarification, these are the biggest cities, not the highest destruction rates. Oh, yeah. As a German, it is painful to see Germany would be a really beautiful country without the war, but what's to say, frick around and find out. I mean, that's basically the theme here. They fricked around twice and found out. Twice. Yeah, it's honestly impressive that Germany still has any cities worth visiting after that. Oh, they certainly do. Germany's still, I think, a very beautiful place. You're going to have a higher chance of being a billionaire if you go to these schools. Historically speaking, these are the universities that produced the most billionaires so far. Now, this is definitely more of a recent development because we've only just kind of recently had billionaires in the first place. And look at that. Some of these billionaires aren't even coming from North America. They're coming from Russia, China, and India too. Also, South Korea with 12 billionaires total graduating from Seoul National University. There's actually a four-way tie at 12 with 12 graduates from these universities. University of Chicago, then UCLA, they're also at 12. 12. Sorry, I guess that would make it a 5-way tie, Drew. Damn, Princeton. Princeton is such a like high like standard in my mind. I've just always thought of Princeton as being like one of the fancier schools. Only 13 billionaires? Bro, those are rookie numbers. Literally in line with UCLA, really? Moscow also produced 13 billionaires so far. Peking University in China, 14 billionaires. University of Michigan at 15. I don't think of the University of Michigan as being like a smart school for billionaires, but you know, some of these, a lot of the schools are literally heavily being helped by just the number of attendance. Like if you're just a big ass school like the University of Michigan and have like 100,000 graduates every single year, you know, the chances are like one of those is going to be a billionaire eventually. Berkeley in 12th place, also with 15, and USC at 17. Now we have the top 10. NYU, they're at 18. China University of Mumbai with over 20. Cornell University, Yale University, both in the USA. Then we have MIT at number 5. I would expect MIT to be number 1, to be quite honest. Columbia University in 4th place with 32 billionaires. Penn in 3rd place, 38 billionaires. Stanford at 69, and of course, number 1 is Harvard. All these American schools taking the top 7 spots. I guess Harvard shouldn't be the most surprising. I didn't think Harvard would be number 1. Isn't MIT better than Harvard? Like, you gotta be more of a smart kid to be in MIT. Harvard's probably just producing like leaders in general, and that can help you be a billionaire, that's for sure. Notable Harvard alum billionaires include Michael Bloomberg and Steve Ballmer. They've had over 100 billionaires graduated. That's really good rates. I mean, just this alone would be like, man, maybe I should choose Harvard over everything else. I mean, if I'm a billionaire, then I've literally just won the whole game of life. It's over. Again, these numbers are destined to increase though, especially with inflation, honestly. But yeah, these schools are only going to graduate more and more billionaires. Kind of surprising. Nothing from Oxford University, nothing from Japan. I mean, Europe got really high taxes. That might be the reason why. Not to say, I mean, I thought China also has high taxes, but I think Europe does struggle getting more billionaires up. There's also a lot more regulation, which can stifle like small businesses from becoming like massive businesses. Good point. How many billionaires got into prestigious schools because they had rich parents? Yeah, so maybe the parents weren't billionaires yet, but they were basically destined to become billionaires if they just live long enough. Yeah, which universities has the most students which inherit massive amounts of money? I feel like that University of Michigan one. That was an impressive one. Or UCLA maybe? I mean, like the non-Ivy League schools, maybe those kids didn't have necessarily the richest parents. University of Mumbai being here proved its nepotism. It's known for where rich kids study, not where founders or billionaires are made. Well, one of those billionaires was, what's his name? Mark Zuckerberg. But he didn't graduate from Harvard, right? He went to Harvard and he became a billionaire. DruuuWu Labubu, Drew's AI girlfriend, LuxembourgLover, LoreTrack, William, never change Drew unless you want to, Nolan, AlexandertheTerrible, NordTyrol, Miglu the Goat, KingBearHaze, Connor Pavlik, Fredrik Tibblin, and Tambre. To all my Patreon subscribers this month, thank you. If you want your name here, check the description down below.